There is a loaf of bread on shelves in every state in this country with the word butter in its name. One word. Butter bread. Flip it over and butter shows up in the 2% or less section, underneath the sugar. And right next to it, the company prints a little asterisk. That asterisk leads to a footnote. The footnote says, the butter is a trivial source of cholesterol. Trivial. Their word, not mine. They named the loaf after an ingredient and then told you, in small print, on their own bag, that there's barely any of it in there. And that's number one. We're not there yet. Here's the thing about the bread aisle that took me way too long to figure out. Bread is 4 ingredients. Flour, water, salt, yeast. That's it. That's the whole recipe. Humans have been doing it for 6,000 years. So when you pick up a loaf and the ingredient list runs 30 items deep and includes something also sold in a hardware store, that's not bread that got complicated. That's a shelf life problem that got solved with chemistry. And you paid for the solution. The front of the bag is not regulated the way you think it is. Nature, farmhouse, country, artesano. Those words mean whatever the marketing department wants them to mean. The back of the bag is regulated. The back of the bag is where the truth lives, printed in 6-point type, in the exact order of how much of it is actually in there. So today, 10 brands that are probably in your kitchen right now, counting down from mildly annoying to the one that made me put the loaf back on the shelf and just stand there. And then we flip it and I'll show you 3 that are actually real bread, sold in America, that you can buy this week. Every single thing I say comes off the label. Go check the bag yourself. Recipes get reformulated quietly and nobody sends you a letter. Before we start, I want to give you the thing that makes this whole video useless in the best possible way. Because after this, you don't need me. 3 questions. You can run them on any loaf, in any store, in about 3 seconds, standing right there in the aisle. Question 1. What does the front actually claim legally? There's a real difference between 100% whole wheat and wheat bread and made with whole grain, and those differences are not decoration. Only one of those phrases is a promise. The rest are ways of standing near a promise without making it. Question 2. How long is the list? Real bread is 4 ingredients. Good commercial bread might be 7 or 8 because a bakery has to ship it somewhere. 30 ingredients is not a recipe. 30 ingredients is a logistics document. Question 3. What's first? This is the big one and almost nobody knows it. Ingredients are listed by weight, heaviest first. So whatever is first is most of what you're holding. If the bag says wheat and the first thing on the list is enriched flour, then the first thing on the list is white flour. The wheat is somewhere down at position 3, doing a cameo. 3 questions. Front claim, list length, first ingredient. Remember question 3 especially because it's going to come back around 4 separate times before we're done. Okay. Number 10. We're starting soft, and I want to be honest about why. Great value is Walmart's house bread. It's cheap, it's everywhere, it's in the cart because it's $1 something, and you have 4 other things to get. The bag says 100% whole wheat, and here's the part where I'm going to defend it for a second. That claim is real. Whole wheat flour is the first ingredient. It passed question 3. Out of everything on this list, the store brand is the one that told the truth on the front. So why is it here at all? Because run question 2. Count the list. This is 4-ingredient food, and the list is around 20 items long. Dough conditioners, emulsifiers, a preservative. The bread is real, and then a small industrial pharmacy got added to make sure it survives a truck ride, a warehouse, and 11 days on a shelf under fluorescent lights. And you can feel it before you even open the bag. Press it. Real bread resists you a little, then gives, then keeps the dent. Press this, and it goes completely flat and springs back like upholstery foam. That's not freshness. That's engineering. Something in that bag is doing work that flour, water, salt, and yeast cannot do on their own. Number 10 is the honest one. It says whole wheat, and it means whole wheat. It just needed 20 ingredients to say it. That's the floor of this list, and now watch how fast the floor drops out. Wonder doesn't claim to be healthy. Give it that. There's no leaf on the bag, no farm, no seal. The red and blue and yellow balloons, the loaf your grandmother had on the counter, the one that made 100 years of American sandwiches. It sells nostalgia, and nostalgia isn't a lie. Then you read the back. Unbleached enriched flour, water, sugar, yeast. Fine so far, that's 4 in, that's basically bread. Then, contains 2% or less of each of the following. And what follows is a paragraph: calcium carbonate, wheat gluten, soybean oil, salt, and then a category called dough conditioners, which opens a parenthesis. And inside that parenthesis are 11 different chemicals: sodium stearoyl lactylate, calcium stearoyl lactylate, monoglycerides, mono and diglycerides, distilled monoglycerides, calcium peroxide, calcium iodate, DATEM, ethoxylated mono and diglycerides, enzymes, ascorbic acid. Now here's the detail that got me. Read the words before that list. It says, contains one or more of the following. One or more. The label doesn't tell you which ones. It gives you a menu of 11 possible chemicals and declines to say which ones are actually in the loaf in your hand. That's legal. That's a completely legal way to write an ingredient list in this country. You are reading a label that is technically informing you of nothing. After that comes vinegar, monocalcium phosphate, citric acid, vitamin D3, soy lecithin, and calcium propionate to retard spoilage. Final count: north of 30 ingredients for a food that needs 4. Oh, and one more thing. Pull up this exact loaf on 2 different grocery websites, and one lists high fructose corn syrup as the 3rd ingredient. The other lists sugar. Same product, same size, same barcode family. The recipe changed and nobody said a word, which is exactly why I keep telling you to check your own bag instead of trusting me. Wonder isn't pretending to be health food. It's just quietly the most chemically managed loaf your grandmother never met. And the next one costs more and starts pretending. Artesano. Say it out loud. It sounds like artisan. It sounds like a small place with flour on the counter and somebody's forearms. It's a thick-cut, bakery-style loaf in a bag designed to look like it came from behind a glass case instead of off a pallet. Artesano is not a legal term. It's not a certification. It's not a standard. It's not a claim anyone has to back up. It is a word that lives near a real word. Nobody at any agency can stop a factory in Pennsylvania from calling a loaf Artesano because Artesano doesn't mean anything. That's the whole design. It gets to borrow every association artisan has without carrying a single one of artisan's obligations. Run question 2 on it. It's a long list. Long enough that whatever a real artisan bakery is doing, this isn't it. Real artisan bread has a shelf life measured in about a day and a half because there's nothing in it to make the shelf life longer. This has a shelf life measured in weeks. Those 2 facts cannot both be true about the same process. And this is the trick I want you to start seeing everywhere in this aisle. Because once you see it, you can't stop. The front of the bag never lies exactly. It just stands as close to a lie as it can without touching it. Artesano, not artisan. Nature's own, not natural. Farmhouse, not a farm. Which, funny you should mention it. Pepperidge Farm. The red bag. The old-fashioned lettering. A name that sounds like a real place with a stone wall and a kitchen garden, and someone's grandmother who has opinions about butter. There was a real farm. In 1937, Margaret Rudkin baked bread in her kitchen in Fairfield, Connecticut, because her son had asthma and she wanted him eating something without preservatives in it. That is a genuinely great story, and it is genuinely true. It is also 89 years old. Pepperidge Farm is owned by the Campbell's Company, publicly traded, over $10 billion in annual revenue. There is no farm. There hasn't been a farm in most of your lifetime. What there is a brand asset that Campbell's paid for and maintains, because the word farmhouse on a bag is worth real money at the register. And that's not illegal. It's not even unusual. What it is a specific thing you're paying for. Go stand in front of the shelf and compare Pepperidge Farm to the store brand next to it. Look at the price gap. Now flip both over and compare the ingredient lists. Ask yourself, out loud if you have to, what that gap is buying you. Because in a lot of cases, it's buying you the word farmhouse. Then there's the other thing shoppers keep flagging, which is that the loaf keeps getting smaller. Compare the net weight on the bag today to the one in a photo from a few years ago. The price didn't move. The bread did. Heritage is the product. The bread is the delivery mechanism. And Pepperidge Farm at least still has a heritage that existed. The next 2 brands are heritage that got bought and hollowed out while the name stayed on the bag. Arnold has been on American shelves since 1940. Country White. Even the subname is doing work. Country, as in not from here, as in somewhere with a barn. Arnold is owned by Bimbo Bakeries USA. Bimbo is a Mexican multinational, $22 billion a year. It is, by a wide margin, the largest baking company on earth. Now flip the loaf. The front says Country White, and the list starts with enriched wheat flour. And enriched wheat flour is white flour that had the good parts milled out and then had synthetic vitamins added back in to replace what the milling removed. That's what enriched means. It's not a bonus. It's a repair. The word enriched on a bag is an admission that something was removed first. That's not a scandal on its own. White bread is allowed to be white bread. The problem is the geography. The bag says country. The process says commodity flour, industrial line, national distribution network, and a parent company in another country with a P&L to hit. Nothing about this loaf is country. Country is the paint dot. And here's where it turns, because I want to show you what you're actually choosing between when you stand in that aisle. Depending on where you live, this is Oro wheat or brownberry. Same company, different regional name, which is your first clue. Oro wheat started as Oro wheat in Los Angeles decades back, a real California operation. Brownberry started in Wisconsin, 2 different regional bakeries, 2 different heritages, 2 different bags, sitting in 2 different halves of the country. Both are Bimbo. So is Arnold. So is Sara Lee. So is Entenmann's. So is Thomas's. So is Ballpark. And that's a partial list. Stop and sit with that, because this is the part that actually changed how I shop. You are standing in front of a shelf. You see 6 or 7 brands. Different logos, different color schemes, different fonts, different stories, different price points. It reads as a market, it reads as competition, it reads as choice. Most of those bags go back to 2 companies. Bimbo owns 1 pile of them. Flowers. Foods, that's Wonder, that's Nature's Own, and we'll get to who else owns the other pile. When one corporation absorbs a regional bakery, the recipe follows the corporation, not the other way around. Same flour suppliers, same industrial lines, same shelf life targets, same margin math. The bag keeps the old name because the old name is the asset. Everything behind the bag got standardized years ago. You were never choosing between 7 bakeries. You were choosing between 7 bags. And now that you can see the shelf properly, let's talk about the single biggest trick on it. Because number 4 isn't a brand. It's a sentence. Okay, deep breath. This one's structural, and it's the reason I made this video. Walk the aisle and count how many loaves are brown. A lot, right? Brown reads as healthy. Brown reads as wheat, as fiber, as the responsible choice, as the thing you buy because you're 40 now. Some of that brown is whole grain. Some of that brown is caramel color. Here's the latter, and I want you to learn it because it's the most useful thing in this video after the 3 questions. 100% whole wheat. This one's a real claim. It means the flour is whole wheat flour. All of it. This is the only phrase in the aisle that's actually making a promise. Whole wheat, without the 100%. Weaker. Some of it is. Run question 3 and find out how much. Wheat bread. This means nothing. This is the joke of the entire aisle. All bread is wheat bread. White bread is wheat bread. Wheat is what bread is made of. A bag that says wheat bread has told you literally nothing except that it isn't made of rye, and it's counting on you reading the word wheat and thinking whole wheat because those are different words and the gap between them is where the money is. Made with whole grain. Read that as a sentence. Made with, not of. With. There's a whole grain somewhere in there. It could be the 9th ingredient. It could be a rounding error. Made with whole grain is technically true if you throw 1 handful in a mixer the size of a car. And the color. When a mostly white loaf needs to look like it isn't, caramel color does the job. It's on the label. It's legal. It's not hidden. It's just below the fold, in the part nobody reads, doing a job that only works if you don't read it. So here's your rule. Ignore the color. Ignore the front entirely. Find the phrase 100% whole wheat or don't, and then flip it over and check that whole wheat flour is sitting in first position. If it's not first, it's a garnish, and you're buying white bread that went to a stylist. That's the mechanic. Now watch 3 brands fail it in a row. Sara Lee, 70 years in American kitchens. Birthday cakes, the warm gold bag, honey wheat. 2 nice words, 2 things you'd want in bread. Run the test. Question 1. Front claim. Honey wheat. Not 100% whole wheat. Not whole wheat. Honey wheat. 2 nouns, holding hands, promising nothing. Question 3. What's first? Enriched flour. White flour. In a loaf with wheat in the name. And the honey. Honey is on the label. Honey is in the product name. Honey is the reason the bag is that particular shade of gold. Then you read down the list and find the other sweeteners sitting there. Sugar. Corn syrup, depending on the loaf and the year. Check yours, because these get reformulated and I'm not going to tell you what's in a bag I can't see. Here's the thing about honey in a product name. There is no minimum. Nobody at any agency has ever said a loaf named honey wheat has to contain a specific amount of honey, or that honey has to be the primary sweetener, or that honey has to outrank sugar on the list. The word honey on the front is doing emotional work. The sweetener doing the actual work is somewhere further down in a font you'd need to hold up to the window. Sara Lee, 70 years of trust, owned by Bimbo since 2011, same parent as Arnold, same parent as Orowheat, same shelf. The name says honey and wheat. The label says sugar and white flour. And that's number 3. Number 2 is the one that's going to make some of you angry, because it's the loaf you bought specifically to avoid everything I've just described. I want to be careful here, because this is the best product on the avoid list by a distance, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Dave's Killer Bread is USDA organic. It's non-GMO project verified. No high fructose corn syrup, no artificial preservatives, no artificial ingredients. 21 whole grains and seeds. 6 grams of protein and 4 grams of fiber a slice. Dense, seeded, actual heft in your hand. Compared to everything above it on this list, it's not close. And the story on the bag is real. Dave Dahl, 15 years in prison, comes out, starts selling bread at the Portland Farmers Market with his nephew. The company hires people with records, roughly 1 in 3 at their Milwaukee bakery. That's a genuinely good thing that a company is genuinely doing. So why is it at number 2? Because of what's not on the bag. In 2015, Flowers Foods bought Dave's Killer Bread for $275 million. Flowers Foods is a $5 billion public corporation. Flowers owns Wonder. Flowers owns Nature's Own. Flowers owns Tasty Cake and Canyon Bakehouse and Mrs. Freshley's. The founder's story stayed on the bag. The regional Pacific Northwest bakery became a national brand, riding a corporate direct store delivery network, and every single thing about the packaging is still designed to read as independent. Look at that bag. Bold, weird, hand-drawn punk rock, a guy's face and a guitar. Now hold it next to a Wonder bag. Nothing about those 2 products signals the same parent company. That's not an accident. That's the entire point. The packaging is a costume, and the costume costs you nothing to wear and earns Flowers a premium at the register. And in September 2024, a class action was certified in California federal court alleging the company misleads consumers about the protein content on the front labels of the Good Seed and 21 whole grains and seeds varieties. I want to be precise about that. That is an allegation in an ongoing case. Flowers Foods has denied it. A lawsuit is a lawsuit, not a verdict, and if it resolves, I'll say so. Here's my honest verdict. If Dave's is what's in your kitchen, you're doing better than 9 out of 10 people watching this. But you're paying an independent craft price for a product on a $5 billion supply chain, and the bag is built so you never think about that. The bread is good. The story is the markup. And that brings us to number 1, which is not the worst bread on this list. It might not even be bad bread. It's here because of one word printed by the company on their own label. Nature's Own is the number 1 selling loaf bread brand in America. Not a top brand. The brand. Per Circana's syndicated data through early this year, more American families put this in the cart than anything else in the aisle. Start with the name of the company, Nature's Own. 2 words that mean absolutely nothing and imply absolutely everything. It's the Artesano trick, run at national scale for decades. And the marketing copy leans right into it. They'll tell you they believe great bread starts with a straightforward ingredient list and that the label speaks for itself. Okay, let's let the label speak. Butter bread. 1 word, on the front, in the biggest type on the bag. The whole proposition is butter. Flip it. Unbleached enriched flour. White flour, question 3. We've been here. Water, sugar, yeast. Then, contains 2% or less of each of the following. And the first thing inside that 2% bin is butter. Butter is in the 2% bin. In a loaf called butter bread, it's underneath the sugar. It's underneath the yeast. The single ingredient the product is named after didn't crack the top 4, and by the company's own label, it's capped at 2% of the loaf. And then there's an asterisk next to the word butter, and that asterisk goes to a footnote, and the footnote reads, a trivial source of cholesterol, trivial. They printed trivial, next to the butter, in the loaf called butter bread. Now, I know exactly what that footnote is for. It's a nutrition disclosure, it's boilerplate, some lawyer put it there so nobody can say they implied a dairy benefit. I get it. But read the bag as a whole object, the way a person in a store reads it in 2 seconds. The front of the bag sells you butter in 72-point type. The back of the bag, in 6-point type, calls the butter trivial. Same bag, same company, same afternoon. Keep going, because it gets better. The front says no artificial preservatives. The list includes cultured wheat flour, which is a fermented ingredient that functions the way a preservative functions and gets to be listed as an ingredient instead of a preservative. Some versions also list ascorbic acid. And in California federal court, there's an active class action alleging that a front label claim of never any artificial preservatives is misleading where the product contains ascorbic acid, since both the FDA and USDA classify it as a synthetic preservative. That case is an allegation. It has not been decided. I'm telling you it exists, not that it's true. Oh, and there are at least 2 versions of this loaf circulating right now. One with calcium sulfate, monocalcium phosphate, ascorbic acid, soy lecithin. Another, newer one with flaxseed meal and acerola cherry powder. The recipe changed. The bag looks basically the same. That is the entire reason I say, check your own package instead of trusting a video. So, the #1 selling bread brand in America. A loaf named after butter, where butter is capped at 2% and ranked below sugar, and the company's own footnote calls it trivial. A front-of-bag preservative claim currently being litigated, and a company name that means nothing at all. I'm not going to tell you it's bad for you. I have no idea, and neither does anybody making that claim on the internet. I'm telling you the front of that bag and the back of that bag are describing 2 different products, and only one of them is regulated. All right, deep breath. Let's flip it. Everything from here is real, and I want you to notice one thing as we go. The good ones have almost nothing written on the front. No farmhouse, no country, no nature, no Artesano, no story about anybody's grandmother. Because when the ingredient list can carry the product, you don't need the bag to carry it for you. The amount of copy on the front is roughly inversely proportional to what's inside. Watch. 1 Degree does something almost nobody in this aisle does, and it costs them money to do it. They publish the farm, not the country, not the region, the farm. There's a code on the bag. Scan it, and it takes you to the grower who grew the wheat in the loaf you're holding with his name and his face and where his fields are. Nobody made them do that. There's no law, no certification, no regulation anywhere that requires a bread company to tell you which field the wheat came from. Now run the 3 questions on it. Front claim, organic sprouted whole wheat, and that's it. That's basically the whole front. List length, short enough to read out loud without losing your place. Sprouted whole wheat, water, oats, a little cane sugar, yeast, salt. First ingredient, the whole wheat. First, not third. First, no DATEM, no calcium sulfate, no mono and diglycerides, no dough conditioner menu with 11 possible chemicals, and a shrug. Nothing that also has a job in construction. Open the bag and you smell grain immediately, which is a sentence I couldn't write about anything on the avoid list. Tear a slice, and it tears. It comes apart in strands instead of compressing flat and springing back like a cushion. That's what happens when there's nothing in there whose entire purpose is to make it behave like a cushion. The catch is real, and I'm not going to hide it. Distribution is limited. You'll want a natural grocer or you order direct. That's genuinely inconvenient. And that inconvenience is exactly what a company looks like when it hasn't handed its supply chain to a $5 billion operator. 3, Because you can't always get it, not because it isn't excellent. This one's the insider pick, and it starts with a fact that stops people cold. There's no flour in it. None. Zero. Food for Life doesn't mill grain into flour, they sprout it. 6 organic grains and legumes: wheat, barley, millet, lentils, soybeans, spelt, sprouted, then baked slow at controlled temperature. It's not a reformulated industrial loaf with better marketing on the bag. It's a different process from the ground up, which is why it's been in the freezer section of natural grocers since 1964, and most people in this country have walked past it their entire lives. 11 ingredients. All of them are food. You can look at every single one and say what it is. No added sugar, no preservatives, no dough conditioners, nothing with a construction application. Family-owned, baking in Corona, California, 60-plus years. No multinational parent. Not yet, anyway. The trade-off is honest. This is not a soft loaf. It's dense, it's chewy, it's hearty, and most people want it toasted. If your household expects pillowy, this is a real adjustment. And you'll find it in the freezer, not the bread aisle. Because with no preservatives in it, this loaf molds at room temperature. Which I want to reframe for you because it's the whole video in one sentence. That's not a defect. That's the receipt. Mold means there's something in there worth eating. A loaf that sits on a counter for 3 months and doesn't change was engineered to sit on a counter for 3 months and not change, and something in that bag is doing that job. And here's the one I actually think you should buy. Because I know how this goes. You watch a video like this, you get fired up, you go buy the densest, most virtuous loaf in the store, your kid takes one bite of a sandwich and it goes in the trash, and by Thursday, butter bread is back on the counter. I've done it. Everybody's done it. The best bread is the one that survives contact with your actual household. Silver Hills is a Canadian family-owned sprouted bakery, and it's the practical answer. Sprouted whole grain, short recognizable list, no dough conditioner menu, no calcium sulfate, no caramel color pretending to be fiber. Plant-based, nut-free, non-GMO, project verified, certified vegan across the lineup. Fiber and whole grains and real protein per slice, and the omega variety is a verified source of omega-3 ALA. In the US, you'll find it at Sprouts, Whole Foods, and most natural chains. In Canada, Loblaws, Metro, and the national chains. And here's why it takes the top spot over Ezekiel. It's soft enough for a sandwich straight from the bag. No toaster required, no negotiation with a 9-year-old, no reframing what bread is supposed to feel like. It's the clean option you can actually switch to on a Tuesday without anybody in your house filing a complaint. Now run the test on it one more time because this is what a pass looks like. Front claim, sprouted whole grain, and the front is otherwise almost blank. List length, short. First ingredient, the whole grain. 3 for 3. The price is higher than anything on the avoid list. Availability depends on where you live. Both of those are real, and I'm not going to pretend they aren't. They're also just what it costs when a company sources exactly what it says it sources and doesn't have a corporate parent running a margin calculation on top of it. So look at what the good three have in common, because it's not the price and it's not the seals. It's that the front of the bag is boring. Sprouted whole grain. That's it. That's the pitch. No farmhouse, no country, no nature, no grandmother, no asterisk leading to a footnote that quietly walks back the name of the product. The ingredient list is the marketing. When you can do that, you don't need anything else. And here's the part I keep chewing on. Silver Hills does it. 1 Degree does it. Food for Life has done it since 1964 out of a family bakery in Corona, California. So, a $5 billion corporation with a national distribution network and a research kitchen and every advantage in the industry can obviously do it too. They're not failing to make clean bread. They're choosing not to. Those are completely different sentences, and only one of them is an accident. Next time you're in that aisle, you've got 3 seconds and 3 questions. What does the front actually claim? How long is the list? What's first? That's it. That's the whole thing. You'll clear half the shelf before you've finished asking. And if you only remember one rule, real bread is flour, water, salt, and yeast. Everything past 4 is somebody solving a problem that isn't yours. I want to know which one got you. Was it the drywall compound? Was it Bimbo owning half the aisle? Or was it the word trivial? Because it was trivial for me and I'm still not over it. Tell me in the comments and go look at what's actually on your counter right now. If this made your next grocery trip better, a like genuinely helps push it to somebody standing in that aisle this week with no idea. And subscribe, because we're doing this to the whole store. Because if you think the bread aisle is bad, wait until you see what the word butter is doing 4 aisles over. There's a tub in the dairy case with a barn on the lid, and the word spread in type so small you need to turn it toward the light. And when you flip that one over, the first ingredient isn't flour and it isn't cream, it's water. See you there.